Hey everyone, welcome back to 51%'s Crypto Research Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Shaughnessy. Today I had a great conversation with Mike Kane, the co-founder and CEO of Hydrogen. Hydrogen, along with the Hydro token, is a platform company that's a one-stop shop to enable the next generation of financial applications. As a platform company, Hydrogen should be thought of similar to Ethereum or EOS and not a product company. Successful platform companies are able to attract massive network effects as applications are built on top of them. We've seen that with Ethereum. Interestingly, Hydrogen is a one-stop shop. So it offers all the pieces to build financial applications instead of requiring developers to talk to 15 startups for each piece. For example, if a developer wants to build an application, they have to go to one company for KYC, one for identity, one for payments, one for verification. Instead, Hydrogen offers all of these pieces for developers in an end-to-end platform to build applications. This conversation is especially worthwhile since everyone wants to know how crypto and blockchain will affect the future, especially in the world of finance. This conversation covers building the future of finance and specifically how Hydrogen isn't looking to displace Web 2.0 companies, but is instead focused on building the Web 3.0. Hydrogen is clean, which we're a fan of. The company hasn't done an ICO, has over 13,000 developers on the platform, and is constantly winning awards, doing meetups, and hosting events. The company has dozens of partners and even has TD Bank as a client. Most interestingly, the company Hydrogen is profitable today, which is unheard of in the world of crypto. Separately, we want to remind our listeners that you can visit 51pct.io for our latest research reports. All you have to do is enter your email address and you'll get our latest deep dive and valuation model on MakerDAO, and you'll be signed up to receive all of our future alerts on any new research reports we put out. With that, here's my conversation with Mike Kane. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Mike Kane from Hydrogen. Mike, how's it going?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you guys play really well into our focus because you guys are creating the new ecosystem for new financial products. You're using the blockchain to do it. So I'm really interested to get into what you're doing and how you got started. So let's start with, how'd you get started in crypto?
Awesome. Well, no, thanks for having me again. So our crypto story actually goes back almost 5 years now. Myself and my brother Matt, we're twins. We founded another company called Hedgeable. We were one of the first digital investing platforms to launch in the US in 2009. And our pitch was really to bring a more high net worth style of investing to the mass market. So you can imagine how this played very well into crypto. When crypto started getting big in 2010 to 2013, there wasn't a lot of access for retail investors. And that was really our whole pitch. Let's assume Coinbase was really the only place to get it. And at that time, no one knew how to even open a wallet. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to buy it. So we actually were the first platform in the whole world, first digital investing platform to offer that. We integrated Coinbase in, I would say, 2013, about 5 or 6 years ago. We were one of their first integrations, and we actually offered the ability to add it to your portfolio. So this is becoming very prevalent now. We just saw it as a great investment. This was when Bitcoin was at, $200. We put a small chunk in based on some modeling of portfolios, and we allowed our retail clients to invest in the asset. So original exposure was more on the investing and the asset allocation side. We just saw it as a great opportunity, great technology, before most of the altcoin market really started. As the altcoins and the blockchain platforms and tech started being built in the last few years, we just said to ourselves, wow, this is a really great opportunity. We had started Hydrogen, our new platform at that time, because there isn't really anyone playing in the space of offering kind of an ecosystem for financial services. There's Ripples of the world that's doing payments. There's R3 and some other financial services like Hyperledger related platforms, but they're very institutional, and they're also very non-blockchain oriented, meaning in the traditional sense they're very permissioned and very private blockchain distributed ledger platform. So we just saw a huge opportunity, given our experience and given our network, to kind of build the first public ecosystem that's targeting the financial services, public blockchain, and true blockchain the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So Before we get into your individual products, I'd like to get into where you fit into the financial stack today at a high level. So are you guys looking to displace, like, let's say a bank, or are you looking to displace, like, let's say a Twilio with your two-factor authentication products? It's just at a high level, where do you guys fit in?
Yeah, so
where do you not fit in?
Yeah, at a high level, we're a platform. So you should view Hydrogen like other platforms, like other cloud platforms, things like IBM and Salesforce, some of their kind of multi-product platforms that they offer across different industries. Salesforce is now getting really big into financial services cloud platforms, Oracle, some of the other big tech players. So that's really who we see ourselves competing against, because not only do we have the blockchain platform Hydro, we have a non-blockchain platform as well called Atom. So really we're trying to build a diversified ecosystem where if you're a developer, you're an enterprise, and you want to build and run some of these newer fintech applications, you really don't have a place to go now. It's very hard to go to one of those big platforms. They don't, they don't really service companies well because they don't act as a startup. They're selling a lot of consulting services, a lot of custom implementations. We're built more like a software as a service where things are very easy to use, they're very out of the box, and they're very plug and play for you. We're not competing too much on the individual niches within the different verticals. So yes, we have an identity standard. Yes, we have authentication standard. It doesn't really displacing any of those. We're more working on top of them and building a platform and protocols and libraries that may even use some of those things in the different verticals.
Got it. So you guys are basically setting out to enable the new financial applications that will be built on the blockchain or potentially not on the blockchain?
That's correct, yes. We view ourselves more as an enabler and a connector than a displacer. So we're very top of the funnel or top of the food chain. So things would connect into us. Give you a good example. We could just dive into this now. We just put out ERC 1484. It's actually something that we worked on internally and we're really excited about. We're getting a lot of good feedback from the Ethereum community. It's the first Ethereum digital identity aggregation standard. So there's a lot of individual identity standards, as you probably know, and they all are very competitive with each other. So Uport uses one, Civic uses one, this person, Sovereign, etc. They all use different variations. So they're not really compatible with each other. So a lot of what we try to do is just think more like a platform and an ecosystem. Well, how can we aggregate all this so we can create something that's compatible with all of them? And that's very kind of standard to the rest of our platform. Is we're trying to connect things, trying to integrate things, and just make it really easy to build on top of. And that's like the perfect example from the crypto world.
No, that's awesome. And for the listeners who aren't aware, the ERCs are just updates to Ethereum. I forgot the actual acronym. Ethereum request for comment, I think it is.
Right. Yeah. Ethereum for comment. Yeah. So that's number 1484. There's very few of them that they've actually put into process. We're hoping this will be one. It's really just up to the community to accept it. So we've already gotten past the point where it's in the comment phase. We've done a ton of comments and feedback. We use this internally for our product. So really all we've decided to do with our platform is open source as much as possible. So as we're adding these new innovations in the blockchain, we've been posting them, for the rest of the community, which is why one of the biggest reasons why we like Ethereum is it's very open.
That's awesome. And, I got to be honest, I started looking at you guys a while ago. You're probably one of the first people I spoke to when I started my crypto journey. And just for full disclosure, I do own some Hydro tokens from an airdrop from a while back. But when I came across you guys, I thought, hey, it's kind of hard to understand what they do. And I think that's sometimes the case when you come across a platform company, because it's, hey, we could enable all of this, but we don't have this one specific, product to point to. But on the flip side, platforms have huge growth potential because they can enable tons of applications on them, on their own. So I guess it'd be worth just diving into each of your products to begin with. I guess let's start with Atom. What is Atom and what does it do?
Sure. Yeah, so I think you made a great point about companies that have platforms and not products. And a lot of early stages of ecosystems, and you could think of the Web 3.0 as a new ecosystem. I think people get wrapped up too much in specific products and implementations. Really what you need to enable these kind of growth stages in these ecosystems is platforms. Without platforms, you don't have products. And I think too many people focus on the other way around in blockchain, and they're paying the price. I think 80 to 90% of ICOs have failed at this point because, again, they're either pitching something that they can't make, or they're pitching very, very niche, kind of small products without underlying platform built under it. So that being said, we have two core products on our platform. Very simple to understand. We have one called Atom, and Atom is basically core fintech infrastructure, and this would be centralized infrastructure. So this would be if, let's say, you wanted to build Coinbase or Robinhood or Lemonade, or different kinds of startups in the verticals like insurance and investing and wealth and savings. We have all the financial engineering and infrastructure and connectivity you would need to build those through APIs and libraries, different applications we built out. So that's called Atom. And we have a kind of a parallel platform, which is the main focus of this conversation, called Hydro. We do a lot of parallel things there, but it's decentralized. So instead of having centralized applications, we allow you to either build or more typically connect to centralized applications, adding decentralized components. So things like decentralizing security, identity management, document management, and payments. These are all kind of core things you would need in most financial applications. We built out a whole layer called Hydro that allows you, and we'll get, I'm sure, into more detail on it, to decentralize it. But so those are kind of the two core products. We sell them together. A lot of our clients use both. Some use one, some use the other. But the really cool thing is it's the same platform. So when you onboard to us, it's the same API credentials, the same developer kit, same onboarding, and it's almost seamless to use both. So we're getting a lot of traction now because we just make it easy enough to build all different kinds of applications, not just specific ones.
No, that's awesome. And before we go to Hydro Blockchain, just staying on Atom for a second, on your website, hydrogenplatform.com, you guys list the Nucleus API and what you guys can build, the type of fintech applications you can build with your APIs. These range from investment products to authentication, performance, questionnaires, a lot of different types of products that people can build. So what's the difference between using your set of APIs and using one of your competitors? And I'm not exactly sure who that would be.
Yes, great question. So this gets back to the feature or platform approach. Like, are you a horizontal platform or a vertical product? We view ourselves as a horizontal scaling platform, meaning we fill in all the different verticals. So there are firms that do customer onboarding. There are firms that do, simulations, and there are firms that do analytics and things like that. And they do them very well. What we do is we do all of them kind of all strung together. So our big advantage is data engineering. And let's say you're an enterprise, you have 20 million customers. You're going to have to go to probably 10 to 15 different startups to fill everything you need if you're building the next Coinbase. If they go to try to build Coinbase, they're going to need one platform to do onboarding, and one to do KYC, and then one to do analytics, and one to do the back office integrations, and it goes down the line. So our platform kind of puts all that together. We have kind of the connectivity you need, and a lot of the proprietary functions you need, like to do the different calculations and onboarding and customer service and like ongoing analytics. It's very, very difficult for these companies to do that. So that's really what Atom does. Think of it as like digital transformation in a box. If you're either an enterprise looking to build or a new company, we kind of have, I would say, 80% of what you need already done out of the box. So it saves you an enormous amount of time and energy, and you don't have to go contract out to a million different startups and try to string it all together.
This is it's interesting. So you guys are basically a one-stop shop. You could build whatever financial application you want because you guys have all the plugins, for lack of a better word, to do that, whether it be authentication or accounts or tracking or orders or performance, all that stuff you have.
That's correct, yeah. So it's a front office in a box. If you think about a financial institution, even you could assume Coinbase, they're a financial institution. You have a front office, a mid office, and a back office. We don't touch anything in the back office, any of the regulated, compliant parts of the platform. We do some in the mid office, and we do all of the front office. So that's really interesting of our platform is we're basically allowing you to hook in to the back office and empowering all of the front office or customer facing functionality. And it's straight in the box. We also have our own UX library that comes with the platform. So we've done a lot of work because we've been in fintech for 10 years. We've now, since we started Hydrogen, built dozens of platforms with people all over the world. So we have a really good idea of like what works, what doesn't, what clients are looking for, whether they're end consumers or businesses or enterprises. So we kind of wrap that all into the platform. And it's also constant innovation. As opposed to software where you just make a KYC software and you sell it, we're selling a platform. So when they hook in next year, our platform will double, and the year after it might triple, and the year after it might quadruple in terms of functionality. So it's in the cloud, and they can just upgrade and they get new functionality. So as we add, new endpoints to do different calculators or simulators, or we'll talk about we're adding potentially a security token platform functionality on our platform. So we can keep adding stuff, and they could just hook in and get all these new features. So that's a really cool feature we have that most other guys don't.
Interesting. And before we go on to Hydro blockchain, is there any parallel with Atom with the blockchain or crypto, or is this totally separate as is?
It's parallel because let's take a step back and again assume you come to me, I'm a VC, and you say I want to build Coinbase. I don't like whatever Coinbase is charged now. Let's say they charge 1%. Like I want to charge 0.5% version of Coinbase. Give me a bunch of money to be able to compete with them. You're going to maybe come to us and you can build most of that platform on top of ours. What you can then do is connect all of that functionality through our API, through our platform to Hydro. So whether you're building it on ours or you already have something like Coinbase, it's the same process. It's just here we're making it easy because you could build it all from scratch on top of it. But really, Hydro is a connecting platform. It will connect to any infrastructure, whether you built it on ours, you built it on something else, you hired a firm to do it, whatever it might be. It all can connect. So you can basically instantly decentralize. And that's what's really powerful. Imagine you got billions of platforms around the world in the future. They all can be decentralized without needing to go build on Hyperledger and spend a ton of money trying to figure all that stuff out.
No, that's interesting, and it's kind of cool what you guys are doing because not that much of the focus in blockchain or crypto today is actually on financial services beyond, will it disrupt this or Ripple? To be honest, I mean, I don't really see a lot of companies going out trying to reinvent or improve financial services beyond payments. Do you?
No, it's a good point. I mean, so we have a very large retail contingent. And I think that's kind of the biggest problem we've seen with blockchain. All the enterprise blockchain alliances, all the consortiums are very, very enterprise oriented. It's a big pushback, as you probably know, in most of the Ripple communities and forums. Like, well, are you really helping the end user? Are you pushing blockchain forward if you have just a bunch of banks sending money back and forth with each other? We are much more retail oriented as a company. Most of our clients are big retail banks, retail insurance, retail tech companies, being they have end consumers who are using them, and sometimes tens of millions of them. So we're trying to empower them and get them on the public blockchain, and not sticking to these very private permissions, more institutional platforms. So we're really the only company doing this. Everyone else is going at it more of the institutional angle. We're going at it really from the other end, and we view honestly that as a more powerful way of bringing disruption.
I just put out a deep dive on Ripple. It's like 25 pages, and I think they're parts in the right place. They're trying to solve a real problem, but there's just too many red flags that I found to touch that. Mainly because XRP's use in RippleNet is limited. The cryptocurrency within the company. That's always the crux of it. But
I think every blockchain company is kind of running into that issue. Being able to use the blockchain, it's very hard to use a blockchain and make it usable. So that's a lot of what we focus on is UX, usability, and we do a lot of work here, a lot of work here on product. People don't realize how complicated it is to make a crypto product that people can actually use. That you're not just going to get a bunch of crypto fanatics on Reddit to use. So that's really what we're focused on is building that infrastructure that makes it usable.
That's awesome. And before we circle back on what the future looks like, let's switch over to the Hydrogen blockchain for a second. The Hydra blockchain. Why exactly, again, do you have the Hydra blockchain? In my mind, it's if you want to take certain pieces out from your fintech platform that you're building and you want to decentralize that, you can use your Hydra blockchain to connect those pieces.
Yeah, basically. So the alternative here would be, again, to build your own blockchain or to do things like what R3 does or digital asset. It's build legacy products or rebuild them or build new products on top of blockchain. So we view that as a horrible idea because that usually goes nowhere. It's hard to build something that's fast and efficient and millions of people can use, and now try to move it over to something that's much slower. It really is not meant for billions of different transactions to use. Blockchain is more of a security protocol. So a lot of these companies run into problems trying to do that. So our core thesis is we're not disrupting anything that's going on in the Web 2.0. We're just allowing the Web 2.0 to transition to the Web 3.0. So all you need to do to transition to the Web 3.0 is integrate blockchain to help the end user experience, to help with security, help with transparency. It doesn't mean rebuilding your entire platform on chain. So there's a big difference there. I'll give you an example. There's really no problem with storing, customer information and data and all that stuff in a database. What there is a problem with is, do the users have access to it? Do they own it? Do they own their identity? Can they share their identity? When things are happening, is there any transparency that they're happening? So just because I, as a company, have access to that doesn't mean we also can't use the blockchain. So I think that's the biggest problem most of these other firms have tried to do is try to solve the wrong issue. They're trying to rebuild the entire infrastructure on chain. We're just trying to use the chain that's already available, and it's already working, it's already very beautiful to enhance the experience. So things like adding more authentication and more validation that things are actually happening. So when you go to my mom, for instance, she just had $15,000 of Yankees tickets charged to her credit card. My mom doesn't live in New York, by the way. So how that went through, we're still kind of shaking our head. And she had to dispute it, and they weren't very happy about taking it off her card. So what if you could use the blockchain to validate, where were you when that Yankees.com purchase happened? We could train models on chain and store them on, has there been similar fraud? We could do a point of sale validation where she would have to fingerprint, and that would check against fingerprint she has on the blockchain. There's all these interesting things we could do that would stop that 99.9% of the time. And that's really what we're trying to build is use what's already out there on chain and make people's lives better. And I think there's really no one that's tried to tackle this problem.
No, that's awesome. And let's go into a few of the pieces of Hydro, kind of for the listeners, just to put this into perspective on what you guys are actually enabling. So, you guys have Raindrop for authentication, Tide for secure payments. You have Neobank and Hydro. You have like a few KYC a KYC offering. Let's go through like some real world use cases that you guys are enabling. I think Snowflake might be a good example, or wherever you think is the best fit here.
Sure. Yeah. So there's 5 phases of Hydro, and we just added another one. Really, really cool thing on Hydro is it's a decentralized platform. We have a community of 13,000 developers that have signed up already. We have a whole ambassador program that actually runs most of the project management and oversees a lot of the development on the platform and the community. So we're much more similar to Ethereum or Neo or some of the other platforms than we are tokens. So we'll talk about that first. So in terms of the roadmap, we have 5 core things we built out and then one more. One's called Raindrop, and that's a authentication protocol. The next is Snowflake. That's an identity protocol. The next is Tide, and that's a whole payments protocol. And then we have ICE, which is for documents, and we have MIST for machine learning. So these are all kind of core components that we found you need to run a financial application. So these are all the same things you would need if you're running an off-chain application. You need to as you mentioned, our Snowflake, which is our identity management. If you don't know who your customers are, especially that 90% plus of all signups and transactions and commerce now is done digitally, it's not done in person. You need to know who they are. Like, who are they? Where are they? What are they? How do they get there? You need to be able to validate they are who they say they are. So we have a whole identity management protocol, which is that ERC 1484 that I was telling you about before that we actually introduced. And it allows you to mint Snowflake. It ties your any identity information that you want on chain. And then we're hooking in through our dApp store, a bunch of third-party dApps. So another cool thing about our platform is we have distribution for third parties. So if you're a KYC provider, let's say you do banking KYC, you build a dApp, and then every banking partner comes on to our platform going forward. So would say, hey, we have Snowflake, we have the mobile app, the customer downloads the mobile app, they create their Snowflake. All they have to do is then hook that into one of the KYC providers that you want. So if you want KYC provider A from the dApp store, you tell the user to select it, and then the KYC provider does the authentication. That would then stamp them on chain. Then every time going forward, they don't have to do the KYC again if they don't want. So if bank B comes along and says, oh, we accept that KYC provider, they're one of our preferred people, that's great. And then they just onboard the person right away. So it stops you from doing KYC every time, and obviously would stop a lot of the fraud. That protocol is also compatible with other identity standards. So like I said, that's more of an aggregation. So if someone comes along and says, oh, we only accept Sovereign or Uport, or we work with Civic, we say, fine, that's compatible with this as well. And we just use that as a resolver on chain for the Snowflake. So it's a very, very, very powerful open architecture protocol that can really help with any kind of identity or attestations on chain in the future. So that one's we're really excited about. So that's just like a really simple example.
Mike, just rounding out that example. So let's say that a bank implements the majority of what you have, Snowflake, ICE, for airdrop. Let's say a bank implements all of these pieces to improve their process for their customers. You guys give an example online. I think it's pretty good just for people to visualize this. If you have somebody that wants to open a bank account, they could use Snowflake with your Hydro app to handle KYC. And then they could use ICE, which is on Hydro, to handle the documents. And they could use Raindrop for authentication. So basically, banks and other entities could take all these pieces and implement it just like that for new applications in real time.
That's right, yeah. So what we're trying to build is an end-to-end platform. So again, it gets back to the same thing we talked about a few times. Are you a platform, or are you more of like a vertical feature? If you're a platform, you need to do end-to-end. So that's what we're trying to enable, is end-to-end functionality. It's a two-sided marketplace too. So we have banks, we have insurance companies, we have tech companies that are clients already, either of Hydro or Atom. And then on the other side, we have consumers, we have vendors, we have integration partners, we have dApp providers, we have consulting firms. So it's kind of a very, very robust ecosystem. And the more people we get in each of those, the easier it is to sell the rest of them. So a big problem that Civic and some of these other platforms have had, as many of your listeners have probably read about, is, well, they only have solved one side of the marketplace. They have a lot of people that want to offer, let's say, KYC or offer payments or things like that, but they don't have the end users. Because why would an end user go there?
No, that's super interesting. I wanted to get into your competitors from the real world, but I don't know if I would call them competitors, but just looked on your website. If we look at identity, your competition there would be possibly Civic, which is a huge crypto project as well. Documents might be Docusign today. Authentication might be Twilio today, or Google Auth or something like that. And payments could be anything, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, take your pick. What you're saying is that these competitors will never have the edge you guys have because they're inherently not connected?
Yes. So they're providing a feature or service. So typically features or services are sold through platforms. So that's really what our overarching commentary would be, is we want these guys to partner with us. We don't really want to compete, because look, you can't compete with us. If you're just doing a KYC API, there are literally thousands of KYC APIs. it's a sales-oriented process, but there's no ecosystem there. So you have to just keep selling the next person. We have an ecosystem because we already have clients. One of our clients, for instance, is TD Bank. They have 20 plus million customers in Canada and the US. And we could go sell hundreds of more firms like this. So you can imagine if we have that many end users on our platform, all have access to the same APIs, they could use all this stuff instantly. Where if you're like a Civic, how are you going to convince a bank to use your platform? Because you aren't a platform yourself. You're not really giving them anything besides some KYC. So these are traditionally sold through third parties. So all these different verticals would be sold through, an Oracle or Salesforce would put them in their app store, or Apple or someone like that would put them in like some kind of app exchange, and then you would sell them that way. So it's the same thing we're doing. We built our own app exchange. It's called the Hydro Dap Store. We haven't thought of a better name for that yet, so maybe Tom, you can come up with something. But for now, it's called the DApp Store, and so it'd be the same concept. They could basically deploy a DApp in our store, and then we could offer it to our millions of potential customers. So it's a
maybe Sea of Dapps to go with the Hydro name or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, we can call it like like a sea or a lake or something.
Yeah. For disclosure, I do own some Civic tokens that I bought a while back. I'm a huge fan of Vinny. I really think he's a great thought leader in the space, but I do understand what you're saying is that connecting all of these pieces together is the only way to really make seamless end-to-end applications, and having one project separately, no matter how good it is always going to be an issue.
That's right. Yeah, the distribution, I think the biggest challenge most blockchain entrepreneurs have had, they're not really focused on distribution. A lot of them are trying to build cool products, and we've used a lot of these. We've partnered with a lot of these, and we have very frank conversations with them. And like, look, you need to look in the mirror. Like, how are you going to distribute this and sell it? You build something really cool, but how are you going to get people to use it? And in the end, no one's using your platform. There's really no use to it, to be honest with you.
That's a good point.
There's no acquisitions, very, very few yet in blockchain. There's no IPO because most of these guys have already ICO'd. So where are you going from there? You need to find some kind of distribution model. So we're really trying to help other platforms, and we've partnered with a ton of them so far, and we'll announce some by the end of the year to really build some really cool integrated experience where we can offer it to our customers. It's not really disruptive to them. If anything, it would help them to get more customers.
No, that's awesome. So I know we talked about this, but you're right up the alley of building the infrastructure for the next, the Web 3.0 of finance. I mean, do you think that you're going to be disruptive to current companies today? It sounds to me like you're more of enabling existing banks and insurance companies to offer better products, but it also sounds like you could be disruptive to, let's say, Twilio for authentication, or Docusign on documents, or payment companies today. What's your take on who you're going to disrupt, or who you could put out of business if you're successful?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So we view ourselves as creating a new vertical. So the same way that, Amazon and Google and Facebook have owned the Web 2.0, we want to be one of the, let's say 3 to 5 companies that own the Web 3.0. I mean, you can even put PayPal in there. Like, PayPal is probably the biggest innovator in the Web 2.0 in the fintech space by far, and Square as well. So we really want to be that kind of company for the Web 3.0. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily displacing. We do this as a blue ocean, not a red ocean, because no one's doing it yet. No one's really solved how to enable financial services on chain. People are only going after very small pieces of it. There's no one going after the whole platform approach like we are. So that's really how we think about it. In terms of, outside of that, our platform really wasn't meant to put banks out of business. We think about it more of creating the next bank. That means that by creating the next cool bank, imagine, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you said I could create something like Robinhood or Coinbase. Is Robinhood necessarily putting out of business Schwab? Well, probably not. Is Coinbase putting out of business, I don't know, the NYC? Well, probably not. If anything, it probably makes them stronger because it helps them to add new features to their platform and innovate. So that's kind of how we view ourselves as an enabler for those next versions of those really cool platforms. They're going to have tens of millions of customers. maybe they put people out of business, but that's not really why we built the platform. Honestly, it's really to just enable innovation. So we view ourselves like an innovation platform and not necessarily a business that's just trying to make things more efficient.
No, that's interesting. The comparisons are helpful to visualize where you guys are. So I guess I just have some more, faster technical questions for you. I mean, just moving on, you guys have the Hydro blockchain. I mean, what's the discussion on, why can't you just use Ethereum's blockchain? It seems like you guys are, already building on Ethereum's blockchain. You put out your own ERC, which for the listeners, I'll just say this: it's not easy to put an ERC out, let alone get the community to adopt it, as we've seen with the last, minor war on just changing the block rewards, and those are 4 competing ERCs. That was a big deal. So I guess my question is, why can't you just use Ethereum? Why do you need your own blockchain?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think this is more applicable to companies that are doing tokens. So we have a lot of people integrating our Raindrop or Snowflake that have tokens. The tokens really don't serve much purpose other than just allowing people to pay in their tokens. They're really traditional tech companies that have latched onto the blockchain, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're really making an effort to make it more blockchain oriented than it has to be. So those are probably better off built on Waves or Ethereum or Neo or something like that, and just using their native token. We can't do that because we think of ourselves like a layer 2 technology on top of Ethereum. Being layer 2 is a lot more complicated. We have buyers, we have sellers, we have 3-4-sided marketplaces for some of these things. We have escrow contracts, we have on-chain transactions, off-chain transactions, validations, and all this IPFS and a lot of integrations happening. It's almost impossible just to use the Ethereum token. We've had to do a lot of engineering on our end. We're working now with Plasma, which is another layer 2 initiative to make Ethereum transactions faster and stronger. It's just much better for us to have a closed ecosystem. So the way we view these tokens is they need to be closed ecosystems. You can't prove that you need to have a closed ecosystem where it's in the benefit of the buyers and sellers and supply and demand for there to be your own token moving back and forth. Then you should use Ethereum, and that's clearly the case with us because we have banks, we have customers, we have third-party vendors, and moving Ethereum is almost like. In the US, we use the analogy, if you have a corner store in Chicago, you would never accept euros. What are you going to do with it? You're just going to convert it back to dollars anyway. So it's the same kind of thing. If you're in a community, you're going to have to use the local currency. So we view ourselves that way. But it's a really interesting point that you raise there. We like Ethereum going forward. We think there's a lot of good development. You mentioned we're doing ERC 1484. We're also on the ERC 725 Alliance. We're one of the founding members of that, which is another identity token standard that's actually compatible with the one that we made. We go to all the ETH blockchain hackathons and events. We're very active in the community. So we feel like there's a really strong community, people building a lot of cool stuff. It's very, very decentralized as well. So it serves us very well. And we just hope that as it goes forward, it gets more scalable and more people start building on top of it, and we've already kind of built around some of those challenges.
That's great. Yeah, no, you're one of the most relentless people I see, Mike. Every time I open LinkedIn, I see a new reward that Hydrogen's won or a new conference that you're at. I don't know how you handle traveling so much, but somebody has to, right?
Yeah. We're really innovation focused here, and we never did an ICO, token sale, or anything like that. From day one, we've been really focused on development community. So the reason why I think we've gotten a lot of traction is we put a lot of emphasis in content, transparency, and community incubation. So we basically started from 0 people in our community in February to like 11, 12,000 now from scratch. We haven't paid for any of them. We haven't done any weird marketing. It's just putting out cool products, getting involved with the community, putting out updates, doing partnerships, winning awards, doing press, etc. And people started to really respond well. And then over time, we've handed them off more responsibility. So we're almost fully decentralized at this point. And we're one of the few companies that are like that. Right now, as we speak, people are doing work on the platform, and they don't work for me. They don't work for Hydrogen. They just work in the community because they want to make everything better. So we think that's really important.
No, that's interesting. And for those new to crypto, I mean, not doing an ICO coupled with no paid promotions is extremely respectable. And there's not that many projects that could point to that. I know Blockstack, ZeroX also did some really clean ICOs, but this is a little different. Well, Blockstack, I don't know, they didn't really do an ICO yet. They did vouchers, but just moving on, I know I asked you why you have your own blockchain and you also have your own token. What's the token's use case within the ecosystem?
Sure. So like I was explaining before, we have a closed ecosystem, so we want tokens moving around the ecosystem. So I'll give you an example. Every dApp that gets made in our dApp store, when they're tying into the different smart contracts, so let's say it's the Snowflake, which is the identity smart contract, they could basically set a use case for the token. So a very simple use case would be if you're a KYC provider, you could charge a bank 1,000 hydro or some floating amount based off exchange rates for every KYC. You also can build some special dApp, and you could say for the end user, if you want to instantly onboard every time, like you don't want to have to do any checks, or you want it to go faster, or I don't know, you want some special privilege for this particular partner, like a credit card company. Here, you pay us 10,000 hydro, and you could do it that way. So payments is one of the primary uses, and all that's set by the dApp individually. So it's very, very customized and very customizable. The second thing would be things like escrow or doing things on chain. So let's say we have in our ICE protocol, we're building out, potentially they're looking at doing some escrow contracts. So potentially that would allow you to hold, let's say, an insurance contract. If you're a farmer, you could build a third party could build a dApp that would hold the contracts in there in escrow, and you can release them, and they would hold it with a certain amount of hydro. So these are very, very specific to our ecosystem, and it also encourages people moving tokens back and forth, which creates really, really clean supply and demand in the ecosystem. So you don't have those kind of choppy charts that some of the other guys do, because it should be fully based off of who's using it, how many people are coming in, how many people are going out, how many people are paying, how many people are receiving. So it's almost like its own economy.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And two of the other points I want to get to is you talked about your community voted in a new initiative for you guys. I think it's Tide. How exactly does governance on Hydrogen work? And for those who are new to crypto, governance should be one of the main focuses whenever you're looking at a project, because the ability for token holders to vote is a huge, principal agent problem that, if solved correctly, is fantastic for a project, and if not, it's bad for a project.
Yeah, so we have something very similar to Ethereum. So again, we think ourselves like a platform built on top of Ethereum. Ethereum to us is a low-level protocol. There's no products on Ethereum. They're not going to go create apps. So they haven't so far. So we kind of view ourselves as the platform there that's building the financial apps on top of there. So we have a very similar process. We have a comment section on our GitHub. You can go on there now. There's tons of requests for comments, proposals. Anyone in the community can put those up there. So for instance, I proposed Hail, which is the 6th phase, and now it's been accepted for Hydro, and that would be for security tokenization. We find this to be a huge problem. A lot of clients are asking. There's really no good platform right now. Again, people do pieces of it. Polymath does piece. Stellar just launched StellarX. They do a piece, but no one's doing the whole thing. They don't have like front to back KYC, UX, onboarding, back office integrations through our Atom platform, for instance. We have all the components there to do that, combined with the Snowflake identity and things like that. So I proposed that. People did comments, and then we have an ambassador program. They're called decentralization ambassadors. They're elected. So right now there's about 15 of them. There's plans to have over 100 in the next year. They have full control over a large chunk of tokens. They allocate them. They do transactions with them. They elect more ambassadors. They oversee new development and integrations. We have about 12 integrations ongoing the platform. So things like we integrate into WordPress's store, we integrate into Shopify store and Magento store. So basically you as a business now can use some of our applications out of the box. So they're overseeing a lot of those ecosystem expansions. and development. White paper creation, video creation, developer documentation. They're overseeing a lot of that. And then we have a core team here that works for Hydrogen, the company, that isn't related to them at all. We just work on some of the core technology. So core smart contracts, core architecture, core product. And then those guys kind of work around it. So we view ourselves very similar to Ethereum in that way. They have a few core developers, and then they have a few thousand dedicated people on the outside doing different projects. So very, very similar. And we think this works very well, and we would highly recommend that other companies do similar things. It's very, very good for long-term sustainability of the platform.
Yeah, no, building a community of developers, especially those that are incentivized, is extremely important for the success of a project. And you see that on Ethereum versus Bitcoin, to be honest. And a lot of Bitcoin devs, I think, moved over to Ethereum because of that community growing. And yeah, and I mean, so starting from zero, you guys have, over 10,000 developers signed up. You didn't pay for anything. You didn't do an ICO. You have some great partnership. I mean, you just announced TD Bank as a client. Have you guys released any metrics on, client counts or partner counts, or potentially like how many businesses are using pieces of your blockchain or anything like that?
Yep. Yeah, so we're very transparent. We actually have a whole partner page, and we post virtually everything, as you've probably seen on Twitter, on Telegram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on blog. We probably do 1 or 2 blog posts a day, some weeks, and we're releasing everything. So we have over 30 partners, probably close to 40 at this point. Partners for us would be integration partners, other API companies that integrate into ours. We integrate into them. We have consulting firms as partners. So for instance, Capco is one of the largest financial consultants. We have clients. So some of those clients are startups. Some of them are larger companies, like you mentioned, TD. We also have Principal Financial is a big client. They have 20 plus million customers around the world. And that list is growing every day. So our plan would be the ecosystem just explodes in the next 2 years. We'll probably have a few thousand people on that list. Those integrating Hydro, those servicing Hydro, end users of Hydro, et cetera. We also have a mobile app in the App Store. And we're getting up there in terms of number of downloads of that app. Really all we're trying to do now is get more business to integrate. So we just had another 3 or 4 crypto projects in the last week. For instance, MineXPay, they have about 26,000 credit card subscribers, I think, at this point. They integrated Hydro. We had another freelancer project that's really cool. They just finished their ICO. They probably have 5 or 10,000 customers. So we're just trying to tally up all of these really interesting projects. They're early adopters. They use the technology. They integrate it real fast. And our goal in the next year would be, 1 million plus end users of the application. We think that's realistic. Just need to work a little bit more on making it easier for people to onboard, easier to integrate, and make it very developer friendly. And that's most of our focus right now. But we're very, very transparent. We basically publish everything on our site. We'll soon have some metrics on the site where you can follow every day how many people are downloading, how many people are using stuff on chain, et cetera. So it's even more transparent than we need to be.
No, that's awesome. And I hate to even say this in a negative light, but you have some amazing clients. TD is one of the largest banks in the world. Principal is a huge global insurance company. CI Investments, they're huge. They have over 130 billion in assets. So, I mean, if you have these phenomenal customers, why isn't the Hydro token or getting more press, do you think? Or, why isn't it the top 10 project? Because I've seen worse projects with, way less credible clients, with way larger market caps. Is it that you guys aren't promotional, or is it that it's early stages? Or and before you answer, I preface this with I'm a fan of being non-promotional and really doing the work. I just have to ask.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So we are a technology company. And really all we focused on in the last year since we launched the company has been technology and product. You have to remember, 98% of startups fail. We're already profitable in our first year of business. So we've already beaten out, 98% of people in the market in just our first year in business. So I think people get enamored sometimes where they see, 10 or 20 companies getting press and all the millions of potential users or whatever, and billions of dollars in valuation. Well, those are really not the mainstream. There's tens of thousands of other blockchain companies that don't go anywhere. They can't even launch products. So I do feel like we're in the top 10 in terms of traction, in terms of product. We can't do anything about anything else. It's really out of our control. So that's really the stance we take, is we're focused on product technology. Now, obviously, we didn't do a token sale, so we're really starting kind of the race, halfway behind and on the track. So it's kind of like a horse race. If someone got like a 10-second head start, and obviously, if you can have a really fast horse, you can catch up. That's kind of where we're at now. So I would say that would be my comment there, is we're just focused on the tech, and obviously projects that have a lot of hype, that raised a lot of money, and they have embedded with them, sometimes tens of thousands of people who, if you invest in an ICO, you really don't want them to fail, right? If you put a few $100 in there, you can do everything possible to make that company not fail. So they've kind of bought themselves a few years of runway. But over time, we feel like this will play itself out. And the companies in every cycle of tech that have built really cool products and gotten people to use them have been successful. So that's really all we're focused on, is just product.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, one of my goals is to find the best undiscovered crypto companies first, and you guys are definitely high up on my list. I guess one of my last questions for you, Mike, is I know we talked about Ripple before, and they're more institutionally focused, not so much for consumers or retail, but what's your take there? I mean, do you think that eventually you could move on to their turf, or anything there with what they do on global payments and remittances, anything there?
Yeah. Well, so we're very client-centric. Honestly, we've never gotten any demand from clients for that. So again, I think the big pushback people have is it's actually a very niche product. Yes, people who do that make a lot of money. So don't get me wrong. Remittances between banks is very, very profitable, lucrative. There's middlemen that make a lot of money, but it's very kind of niche. I mean, there's not, the average person on the street doesn't know this is happening. It doesn't really help them too much solving like B2B payments. So we're very retail focused again. So I think we would view ourselves more maybe as like a TransferWise disruptor or something like that. Someone who's doing more retail oriented payments or remittances. If you're sending a remittance from Mexico to US, and that's like the second or third biggest part of the Mexican economy, that could be a huge potential win for blockchain. And if businesses start integrating our app, everyone has mobile phones, we have mobile apps, and we have a app store. Just got to educate people and get them to integrate. And over the next 5 or 10 years, we think we get a lot of business in some of these areas. But I don't know about Ripple, again, because it's very institutional. We really try not to do too much institutional right now because it's not really in our DNA. And institutions are very, very adverse to public blockchain. And we're really trying to advance public blockchains. And Ripple is a lot more centralized than our company is.
Yeah, no, they're definitely a centralized company. There's no doubt about that. Well, Mike, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you, or anything that you thought was important?
No, I think we covered everything. This has been awesome. Hopefully all your listeners learned a lot about not just us, but also, the industry at large and kind of all the interesting things that are happening.
Yeah, of course. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'll definitely have you back on again after we have some more recent events to talk about.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the podcast. Please rate and review it to help other people find it, and visit 51pct.io for our latest research report.